Hello everyone and welcome back to the Magnus Invitational. We are continuing with the semifinals match Hikaru Nakamura versus Fabiano Caruana. The first two games ended in a draw, and then we've seen game 3 where Hikaru won, and now Fabiano needs to win to go into tie breaks. So here it's different. It's not if after 4 games there's a tie, you don't immediately go into Armageddon, but you have two like a mini match, 2 blitz games, and then if those 2 blitz games are tied, then you have another 2 blitz games, another mini match, and only then if that also is a tie, then I guess you go into Armageddon as I understood it. So this is game 4 of the Rapids. Let's check it out. And before we do, I would just like to say that today is also another stream. There's the Leeches team battle going on. So if you want to join our team and try to battle other teams, I will put a link to that in the description below, so you are welcome to join us. That being said, let's check out the game. So Nakamura only needs a win with the white pieces to win the match. He goes knight to f3, starts with Areti opening, and we have d6 by Fabi. So we have d4, now asking if you maybe want to go e4 instead and transpose into the Pirc defense, but Nakamura continues with d4. We have knight to f6 and now c4. We have g6 by Fabi and knight to c3, and now bishop to f5. Sorry about that. So the old Indian defense, so to say. We have knight to h4 immediately going after that bishop, and bishop back to d7 by Fabi, and now e4 by Nakamura. So grabbing a lot of space in the center here. We have e5 by Fabi challenging the center, and now knight back to f3. We have knight to c6 attacking the center, and now Nakamura just grabs more space in the center with d5, knight to e7, and now bishop to e2. Nakamura is ready to castle, bishop to g7, and bishop to e3 now. And there is one game in the database where knight to g4 was played to go immediately after the dark square bishop, but here we have castles, and it is, castles by black, and it is as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So knight to d2. Preparing castles, and f4 might be an idea in the future, and now c6, just going after Hikaru's strong center. We have castles, and now knight to e8. Fabi makes room for the f pawn to be pushed forward. We have d captures on c6, b captures, and now b4, starting an expansion on the queen side, and also with b5 you want to start to further expand. We have bishop to e6 now, opening up the d file for the queen. At some point black might be interested in pushing d5, so knight to b3 and f5 now by Fabi. We have f3, just closing that structure, not worrying about f4, as you will be able to bring the bishop back to f2. We have knight to f6 and now knight to a5. So at some point, if you push b5 and let's say you capture here, you will get the c6 outpost for your knight. We have queen to d7, also just defending the c6 pawn, and now rook to c1. We have rook 8 to c8, and now comes queen to d2. We have rook f to d8, now again, maybe with some ideas of executing d5, but we have rook f to d1. White keeps an eye on the d5 square. We have bishop to f7, and now bishop to f2. Hikaru is improving the position of his pieces as much as possible before executing b5. We have h6 by Fabi, and now finally b5. We have c5, Fabi closes it, and now bishop back to d3. We have f4, closing the position, and now comes knight to d5. An excellent central outpost for the knight, so of course Fabi eliminates it. We have knight e captures on d5, c captures, and now g5. So here we have a situation where Nakamura wants to play on the queen side, whereas Fabi wants to start an attack on the king side. So knight to c6, attacking the rook. It's now just a monster knight here on c6, and rook to e8. We have king to h1, first improving the position of the king a little bit, and now g4. Trying to open up the position. We have bishop to h4, not allowing the pawns to close up the bishop, and now king to h8. We have bishop to e2, and now comes bishop to g6. So Nakamura needs to figure out how to continue his play on the queen side, maybe some a4, a5, b6 action to create a passed pawn here, while he needs to not allow Fabi to create any attacking chances on the king side. So he goes queen to e1, and now knight to h7. Here Fabi is preparing knight to g5 to add yet another attacker to the f3 pawn. We have a4, Nakamura starts his push on the queen side, and now knight to g5. And here queen to f1. Keeping an eye on the b5 pawn, again just getting ready to push, and also adding another defender to the f3 pawn. We have bishop to f6, and then now comes a5. Nakamura just continues pushing on the queen side, but here, by playing bishop to f6, Fabi actually prepared a sneaky trap, which Nakamura missed with this a5 move, so feel free to pause the video and try to find this, well, it's a rather simple idea, but, you know, it happens to everyone that you miss an idea like this. So, you know, just enjoy it. So for those of you who actually enjoyed it, congratulations. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight captures on e4. Now you just open up an attack against the bishop. So if pawn captures, bishop captures here, and you won a pawn. And if bishop captures bishop, then you just recapture with the knight, and again you won a pawn. So here Hikaru has to go bishop d3, and okay, it's only a pawn. And now bishop captures on h4. We have bishop captures on e4, bishop captures on e4, and f captures on e4. So now Nakamura is down a pawn, but he just wants to play b6, b7, and hopefully win the game. So rook to f8, now preparing to again start pushing here, and b6 now. We have a captures, and now queen to b7, blocking the pawn and also attacking it. So here rook to a1. Saying, well, are you maybe interested in this b6 pawn? And indeed, if you go for it, for example, queen captures, you will get rook d to b1, and now there's a lot of pressure here towards the white queen. And the problem is, if you move it like queen to c7, you get rook to a7, and you don't want to allow such a strong attack, as your queen is now trapped. The knight prevents the queen from escaping to b8 or d8. Also, the rook covers this square, so it would be really bad. So instead of moving the queen, you'd have to go for something like rook captures here and give up the queen for a knight and the rook. So instead of doing something like this, not blundering the queen, we have rook to a8 by Fabi, not allowing now the rook to infiltrate with rook to a7. So we have rook captures on a8, rook captures on a8, and now just queen to b5, guarding the b6 pawn. And now Fabi starts pushing f3. We have g3, not allowing this, and bishop back to g5. We have knight to a5, pushing back the queen, queen to f7, and now b7. We have rook to b8 by Fabi, and now finally rook to f1. The problem is you don't have time for something like knight to c6 here, because just rook captures on b7, the pawn is no longer defended. So for the moment, the knight needs to keep an eye on the pawn. So rook to f1, now preparing to meet the idea of f2 with just queen to d3. You don't allow queen to f3 checkmate. So not allowing that. So king to g7. Now Fabi starts improving the position of his king, and queen to a6. And here we have queen to g6, again with a tricky idea. Now if Nakamura goes for queen to a8 to try and win the game this way, it's just queen captures on e4. And now if you capture again with the same checkmate, the pawn prevents the king from escaping to g1. So instead we have queen to d3, again Nakamura has to defend the pawn, and now h5, preparing h4 to finally bust open the position. So h4 by Nakamura, he wants to close this position, and if g captures on h3 en passant, then king to h2 will block the position. But here Fabi says there's nothing more to be done here, so of course you all know what Fabi did, even without pausing the video. Fabi of course went bishop captures on h4. He's already up a pawn, so now he just wants to give up the bishop for even more pawns. So g captures on h4, and now queen to f6, again going after the pawn, and white cannot defend it. So here king to g1, not allowing the capture to come with check. Queen captures on h4, and now queen to d2, guarding against any checkmating ideas. And also it will be too early to try and push the pawn, since then you just rook captures and the queen guards h2, so there will be no checkmate. So king g6, Fabi just improves his position, and now knight to c4. Trying to give up the b7 pawn now for the d6 pawn, but queen to f6. Fabi doesn't allow it. Fabi now likes his pawns. We have knight back to a5 guarding the b7 pawn, and queen back to h4 by Fabi. And the problem is Fabi is not satisfied with a draw here. He has to win this game. So Nakamura repeats once again knight c4. and Fabi, of course, cannot repeat. He does repeat once, Queen F6, but now it's interesting. We don't have a repetition of knight to a4, but rather Hikaru now goes knight to e3. So he's the one who decides not to force Fabi to try and find a different plan. But now Fabi just goes queen to f4, and now he pins this knight. The problem is you cannot go something like knight to c4 and trade queens here because, well, after rook captures on b7, you're just lost here. Black is up 4 pawns, and those 4 pawns are 4 passed pawns. So the knight would be very useless here. So instead we have queen to f2, getting out of the way, but now queen captures on e4. We have rook to e1, and now rook captures on b7. And here you're just down 5 pawns, and this is just terrible for white. So here knight to g2, opening up an attack against the queen. Maybe hoping Fabi will blunder with something like this to get a nice fork in, but Fabi just plays queen to d4. And it was in this position on move 58 that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, and Fabi is back in the match, forcing a mini blitz match after the rapid games. So here he resigns because there's nothing to do. Your knight is under attack. If you move it, just king g5, there's no square left for the knight. You're just going to capture and win the knight. Another thing, you could try something like knight to e3, but still just rook to b2, attacks the queen, and after the queen moves, just f2 check, wins on the spot. Other than that, there really are no moves. Like I said, if you capture, it's not even trading queens, since your knight has no squares. And this is covered by the pawn. The rook is preventing knight from coming here. You have to go again for check, and after the king attacks it, there are no squares. You're gonna have to give it up here, but then king just defends. Well, obviously not on f5 here, and there's nothing to do here. You're just down 4 pawns and completely lost. So yeah, incredible comeback by Fabi, and we'll see what happens in the tiebreaks in the Blitz mini match. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Abdullah Raja, David Spatz, William Beggs, Tom Stapleton, and Vijay Santanam for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Magnus Invitational until it finishes. And do join us today in the Elite Chess Team Battle. The link is in the description below. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.